There was a time when the peoples of Europe lived as a part of nature instead of apart from it. When both its awesome beauty and harsh wildness was experienced in every breath. A time when the natural world was embraced and respected as the giver of life, the mother of all, instead of feared and exploited as if an expendable whore. Good morality is more effective in Germany than good laws in some places that we know. Tacitus. There was a time when the challenges of life were met with a steely resolve and heroes were forged in the fires of honorable battle. When a man could look into the eyes of his foe as he took his life and understand the inseparable and interdependent marriage between life and death. A time when the difference between life and death was dependent on the folk and the willingness of each person as free men and women to work for the sustenance and wholeness of the community. A time when our ancestors and our gods spoke to us, guided us, and pushed us to be more, and in return we paid them reverence and dedicated deeds of strength and honor to them. The Germans do not think it in keeping with the divine majesty to confine gods within walls or to portray them in the likeness of any human countenance. Their holy places are woods and groves, and they apply the names of deities to that hidden presence which is seen only by the eye of reverence. Tacitus. The foreign religion of Christianity begins to spread throughout Europe, whether by the sword or by so-called peaceable means. Either way, this new religion is a malicious attack on the folkways of the European peoples. Some welcome the Christ God without a fight. With a worldview that already accepts the existence of multiple gods, it seems of no real consequence to accept one more. Soon, however, they were to be forced or coerced into paying reverence to the Christ God alone, forced to deny the gods who had stood with them since time immemorial. Others won't give up the ways of their ancestors so easily. In October of 782 CE, in an event known as the Bloodbath of Verdun, 4,500 Saxon heathens find themselves captured after Charlemagne, also known as Charles the Great, storms a sacred grove where the Saxons are engaged in traditional rituals. He orders all Saxons be baptized as Christians or suffer beheading. All 4,500 captured Saxons lower their heads, choosing death over the betrayal of their gods and their people. This is just one of the many examples of conversion by the sword. The rise of Christianity on European soil was fertilized by the blood of countless indigenous Europeans who refused to bend their knees to a foreign god and accept a foreign worldview. The true cost, however, of the spread of this virus-like religion was not lives alone. More than broken families and the loss of kith and kin. The real and lasting malignancy lay in the foreign and unwholesome worldview that was imposed. From a worldview of wholeness, strength, and heroism to one of fragmentation, victimhood, and inherent weakness.
The time of heroes is dead. The Christ God has killed it, leaving humankind with nothing but weeping martyrs. Fear and shame.
It has been said that Europe, over the last 2 millennia, has been shaped by Christianity. Yet in many ways, it was Christianity that was shaped by Europe. Christmas, Easter, and Halloween are just a few of the traditional European holy days that were converted into and made to fit the religion of the Christ God. The reverence of saints, worship of a Holy Mother, and concept of the triune God should all be considered idolatry in accordance with the Old Testament Bible. Yet these aspects were necessary in order to satiate the indigenous Europeans' nature-based mentality. There is no way that a strictly monotheistic or even henotheistic worldview would be accepted. Worldviews that go against all empirical evidence of the natural world would never take hold amongst a people whose worldview was simply a reflection of their understanding of their place within the whole. Often, a Christian may harbor feelings of conflict due to the apparent lack of congruence between the moral structure of the Christianity that has arisen out of Europe and that which is expressed in the Old Testament Bible. The progressive yet disciplined nature of the morality that attempts to shine through in spite of the clutches of a foreign worldview is not Christian, but European. Though much was lost, much also survived. Local customs and folklore were kept alive behind the veil of the new and foreign religion. These days, remnants of the old ways still exist here and there. Most, however, have forgotten the root from which these traditions grew and view the religion of the Christ God as our natural, European religion. They are mistaken.
When I reminisce about all those years of tribulation, I mostly remember our songs. We died, and our blood seeped away on the battlefields, but our songs survived, together with those of us that returned. And as they too will die one day, our songs will live on and will be sung by our children and by our children's children. This is how we will be remembered. This is who we were.
Christianity arose out of the mires of the Abrahamic worldview. But what exactly does this worldview entail? And what is the history of the peoples from whom it has its origins? In the ancient world, the Jews, a Middle Eastern nomadic people with no homeland of their own, were exiled from Egypt. This would be the first of many times throughout history that the Jews would be shown the door by a host nation. At least 109 times since 250 CE, the Jews have outstayed their welcome in countries that have either welcomed them in or at least tolerated their presence to a point. 109 times. The most common explanation for this phenomenon amongst Jews and Jewophiles alike is their favorite of weaponized words, anti-Semitism. Yet we must stop and think. If an individual had been kicked out of multiple different rental properties by multiple different landlords, 109 times no less, surely logic and reasoning suggest that the problem lies not in some claimed unwarranted prejudice on the part of the landlords, but with the attitude and actions of the tenant. The following are just a few passages from both the Torah and the Talmud that will help to outline the components of the world's foremost supremacist worldview. From the Torah. Genesis 4:3-5. So it came about in the course of time that Cain brought an offering to the Lord of the fruit of the ground. Abel, on his part, also brought of the firstlings of his flock and of their fat portions. And the Lord had regard for Abel and for his offering, but for Cain and his offering he had no regard. So Cain became very angry and his countenance fell. The first instance of unjustifiable favoritism by the God of the Jews, paving the way for the supremacist religion. Exodus 21:7. If a man sells his daughter as a female slave, she is not to go free as the male slaves do. The endorsement of both slavery and supremacy over women even amongst their own people. Numbers 31:18. Now therefore kill every male among the little ones, and kill every woman who has known man intimately. But all the girls who have not known man intimately spare for yourselves. Orders from the God of the Jews to slaughter men, women, and children and rape virgins amongst Gentiles. From the Talmud. Moed Katan 17a. If a person is tempted to do evil, he should go to a city where he is not known, dress in black clothes, cover his head in black, and do what it is his heart desires, so that God's name will not be desecrated. Nothing to advise against evil here. Just make sure you are unrecognizable as a Jew when you commit evil. Sanhedrin 57a. When a Jew murders a Kuthian, there will be no death penalty. What a Jew steals from a Gentile, he may keep. A worldview of no consequences for violence done against Gentiles. Sanhedrin 59a. A Gentile who studies Torah is liable for death, as it says Moses commanded us Torah as a heritage. It is a heritage for us and not for them. A Gentile is not even allowed to study what the Jews study, punishable by death. The God of the Jews is a bloodthirsty war god. This fact is evidenced by the trail of bloody carnage that runs through the Old Testament and the genocidal occupation of Palestine in the modern day. Through Christianity, the peoples of Europe attempted to become, whether by force or not, the adopted sons and daughters of this foreign god. And in doing so, have been a party to some of the worst crimes in history. All for a god that does not want us. Even the earthly son of this war god has said as much. Matthew 15:26. When a Gentile woman comes to Jesus the Christ God pleading for his help, he replies,
"It is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs."
Not our folk. Not our God. Not our way of life. Europe faces what is being called a refugee crisis. Despite what the media tells us, though, a large portion of these people are not legitimate refugees. They are fit, strong men of fighting age, abandoning their own lands to take advantage of prosperous European nations, to demand Europe changes to suit them. It is not a refugee crisis. It is an invasion. An invasion purposely planned and implemented to bring about the racial and cultural destruction of Europe. What is the goal?
Quel est l'objectif? Ça va faire parler. Et l'objectif, c'est relever le défi du métissage. Défi du métissage que nous adresse le XXIe siècle. Ce n'est pas un choix. C'est une obligation. C'est un impératif. On ne peut pas faire autrement. Si ce volontarisme républicain ne fonctionnait pas, il faudra alors que la République passe à des méthodes plus contraignantes encore.
Than we do ourselves, who still nurse a sense of our homogeneity and difference from others, which is precisely what the European Union, in my view, should be doing its best to undermine.
Because at this point in time, Europe has not yet learned how to be multicultural. And I think we're going to be part of the throes of that transformation, which must take place. Europe is not going to be the monolithic societies that they once were in the last century. Jews are going to be at the center of that. It's a huge transformation for Europe to make. They are now going into a multicultural mode, and Jews will be resented because of our leading role. But without that leading role and without that transformation, Europe will not survive.
Not survive? Everything that defines Europe, that makes Europe what it is, its indigenous peoples, culture, traditions, sacred places, will not survive if this invasion is allowed to continue. Europa has given birth to countless mighty warriors who were willing to give their lives for their folk and their land. The question is not whether she is worth saving, but whether you are worthy of saving her. Raphael Lemkin, the man who coined the term genocide, gave this definition of the word and the ways in which it can be enacted against a people. We must keep it in mind when analyzing the implications of the orchestrated mass immigration of foreign peoples into Europe. By genocide, we mean the destruction of a nation or of an ethnic group. This new word coined by the author to denote an old practice in its modern development is made from the ancient Greek word genos, race, tribe, and the Latin side, killing. Generally speaking, genocide does not necessarily mean the immediate destruction of a nation, except when accomplished by mass killings of all members of a nation. It is intended rather to signify a coordinated plan of different actions aiming at the destruction of essential foundations of the life of national groups. With the aim of annihilating the groups themselves, genocide is directed against the national group as an entity, and the actions involved are directed against individuals, not in their individual capacity, but as members of the national group.
Those without swords can still die upon them. I fear neither death nor pain.
What do you fear, my lady?
A cage. To stay behind bars until use and old age accept them. And all chance of valor has gone beyond recall or desire.
You're a daughter of kings. I do not think that will be your fate.
Now more than ever, Europa calls her sons and daughters, whether in body or in spirit, back to her. Now more than ever, the cry of our ancestors can be heard from deep within the earth. We must return to a worldview that sees the love and protection of one's folk as essential.
We have been Europeans for about 40,000 years. Perhaps it is time that we took a look at the path of our ancestors, the way that they related to themselves, to the gods, to the world around them, and see if there isn't something there that can benefit us, real, ordinary, live human beings in the 21st century.
Like a sapling that springs forth from the hewn stump of a once mighty tree. It is time for the original ways of our people to be reborn. Not in some forlorn longing for a time long past, but as something strong, powerful, and full of might, here and now, something worthy of our own sagas, myths, and legends. That those who follow after us will be inspired by our deeds, so that our children's children shall speak our names. Christianity split the Germanic barbarian into an upper and lower half, and enabled him by repressing the dark side to domesticate the brighter half and fit it for civilization. But the lower, darker half still awaits redemption and a second spell of domestication. Until then, it will remain associated with the vestiges of the prehistoric age, with the collective unconscious, which is subject to a peculiar and ever-increasing activation. As the Christian view of the world loses its authority, the more menacingly will the blonde beast be heard prowling about in its underground prison, ready at any moment to burst out with devastating consequences. Return to your gods. Return to your folk. Return to your roots. Europa, arise.